Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week around media. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions, Alex. What do we have?
Our first question is from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I'm expanding my media digitizing services to include MiniDV tapes. What kind of camera or other hardware should I invest in for this to capture the content on a Windows machine?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, it depends on what you got around. I have a TRV 910 Sony MiniDV camcorder, which probably still works. The problem is keeping the transports working these days off those MiniDVs because they have so many moving parts. They have to pull that tape in around a head, rotating head. And of course, they got that rotating head, so make sure you have a DV tape player or camcorder that will take them that is in working condition because these days not very many people work on them anymore. I don't think Sony supports surfacing them. I know the transports are no longer available. So, find one that's working at your Goodwill store or in a used equipment mart somewhere and make sure it's functional. The other thing is to interface to your computer, you probably want to have a 1394 FireWire card that does FireWire 400 or 800. You can get these, here's a Vantech. You can still get them at Micro Center for about $50. It'll plug into your PCIe port. If you have a spare one inside a desktop computer, you might be able to find a USB 3 to FireWire converter cable, although I haven't seen one lately. To get into that DV recorder. That way you can capture the MiniDV signal in a digital format directly into the computer. And make sure you have the MiniDV codecs in Windows because they're not standard. And you may have to go out and search for those a little bit to make sure that you can play them and capture them onto your computer.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I have one right here. So this is those Sony, is it 10, I believe it is? And I think it turns on. I don't know. It's been a decade or more since I had it on. And I'm just looking at this silly little power supply on the back. I think that's going to be my biggest challenge is finding that power supply because it's like a two-bladed, it's probably 12 volts most likely. It does say DC in, but this thing hasn't been on in a while. And if you're getting calls for MiniDV to transfer MiniDV at this time, I wouldn't invest a lot of money in trying to come up with a solution because I can't imagine there's that many people that would be calling for MiniDV unless it's something else.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I recently had to do a bunch of digitizing of tapes I used to have that I found during a move to our new house, and I simply just went and bought like a $40 camera off of Facebook Marketplace, ran it through the recording process and was done with it. Haven't touched it since. So I recommend just not spending as much as you can. Yeah,
the one that I used to have when I did MiniDV work was the Sony DSLR V10. It's a little Walkman, and it's got a FireWire. I will say that FireWire is much more developed on the older Macs than it was on the PCs because of the way Apple managed its licensing. And so you may find that, but you should be able to make it work. But a lot of the tools are more developed on from FireWire to video is a little bit more developed on the Mac than on a PC. I agree that I don't know how often you'll do it. Here's the other problem is that MiniDV didn't turn out to be a flavor that worked for every camera. So you kind of need to have you can be lucky. I think Zach was lucky to get that working, but we definitely had issues where MiniDV on one camera didn't work on another camera. We did find that the Sony, the DV10, the one that we had, which isn't necessarily the newest one, it's just the one I had, played almost everything. It didn't play quite everything. There was some Toshibas or something like that didn't play correctly. But overall, it did a pretty good job. But there are established places in LA and New York that you'll be competing with, and anybody who's doing searches are going to look for. There's companies here that do. It is a business. It's a good business for the folks that do it. I've actually talked to a couple of them because there's always somebody looking to digitize their MiniDV tapes, but they have 5 or 6 decks, and they have ways of taking care of them and technicians that know how to use them, and they're running hundreds of tapes a day, literally. Like it's not like they're not doing them. And so But I think that if you're only doing a little bit of it here and there, you may have a hard time making that business stable. Next question.
Next up is Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. Guy asks, where can a person interested in remote production learn the basics and real-world workflows?
Go, Jeff.
I would say, first and foremost, volunteer to get involved with office hours because we are doing it every day. And that's the simple and easy answer. Another thing, we were actually going to be doing a show tonight on special shows or special hours. That will be tonight, and we're going to talk exactly about just that topic, remote production. And so I've had a long success with it myself, and I've got a couple other guests that are coming in that have also had success and some pain points too. And that's what we're going to talk about is both the good and the bad out of that. But definitely get involved with office hours because it's every day. We do it.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I was in this position maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I really needed to develop these skills and hone these experiences. Obviously, I had a need for it, so I was jumping in with client work and getting this done. But at home, I recommend setting up multiple computers, figuring out how to remote desktop to them, figuring out what software you like, and then pick which platform you're going to be switching in, producing in, streaming in and outs, all that stuff, and just do it locally. Kind of treat your other computer like the cloud. And then once you're ready to move from that, just go spin up yourself a cheap AWS instance, spend $10 on it for a night, and really dig in.
And I would probably follow along with Jeff is that being part of this, it may not be the exact workflow, but office hours gets you used to the idea that you got people working all over the place, pulling all this stuff together, thinking about things that you probably wouldn't think about. Getting onto another team is really important because you'll learn much faster with a bunch of other people. So even if you're an assistant or, again, getting into office hours means you meet a bunch of people who are already doing virtual events. A guy already does this. I think this is just for the benefit of other folks. But I think that you get to meet a lot of other people that are thinking about these things, and then getting onto their teams that are, and even if it's a very basic role, getting onto those teams to see how they're managing those things will save you a lot of time. Next question.
This one is from Robert A. Ober in Houston, Texas. Good morning. Any of you fine folk have experience with the Roland V600UHD? If so, any issues? Also, how to sync audio from disparate sources? Thanks, Robert.
Go ahead, Zach.
I don't have one of them in play here. I'm using an ATEM at the moment, but I've used a lot of these in church scenarios, and people love them because they're simple, small, compact. They work really great. They're really dependable. The audio sync on there, I believe if you go in the settings, there is a video audio value you can put in milliseconds to adjust that. But you want to make sure you get those all synced up outside the switching source if possible.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting switcher. If you look at it here, this is what you have here. So you've got your HDMI inputs. You've got actual analog XLR inputs. I wish Blackmagic would look at this. So you have HDMI in, a lot of HDMI out, multi-view, SDI in, GPI built into it. So it kind of puts all that hardware on the exterior of things that you need. So I definitely see the use case for some folks. I mean, most of us are still using, when it comes to hardware, small hardware switchers, Blackmagic kind of owns that space, but Roland definitely, you can see that there's a vertical there of I just want to have all these little pieces in there and I want it all to be externalized that Roland might be able to serve there. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, and there is a new version. I was just looking. I haven't used this, but the new version 3.0 has a new feature where it works at 2160. In other words, 4K at 2997. Maybe they were going at 30 frames even before. It'll also do 25 frames per second. But if you're in Houston, Robert, you're probably at 2997. So make sure your audio is all coming in, or frame rates on all of your videos that are coming in are set to 2997 if you're in the 2997 mode. Make sure the frame rates match up and that they're fractional frame rates. If you're on a fractional frame rate, make sure all of your inputs that are coming in with audio have the same fractional frame rate. That way things will not drift at 0.1% per second. And there is a firmware update apparently to update that to 3.0. So make sure you update it if you're going to be operating at those different frame rates.
Next question.
This question comes to us through the QR code. Patrick Hinman in Longview, Texas is asking, I am wanting to humanely attach a camera to my 11-month-old Rottweiler just for some fun shots. GoPro makes a kit for this. Are there any other cameras that would be a good option?
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, GoPros really kind of be the thing you're going to want to look for. The new DJI Osmo Action came out, and it has a great sensor on it and everything, but the stabilization on the GoPro is actually second to none when it comes to this stuff. They actually compensate for rolling shutter, they compensate for horizon leveling, and they kind of are the best at that right now. But yeah, there's lots and lots of different dog chest harness mounts, and there's even ones for front mount, back mount. There's little arms you can get that have a frame that goes around their rib cage and keeps it stable. But from my experience, and especially with what I do in off-road and all these different areas where there's lots of movement, the GoPros really have been where it's at, and finding a compatible harness for your dog will be the best way to do it.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, image stabilization is going to be your friend here because, dogs aren't known for their exacting camera work. So maybe an Insta360 might be, a good choice because they're small, they're lightweight, weigh about the same as a GoPro. Plus, you can then in post go ahead and choose your framing in post-production. So you can look forward over the dog's head if it's on his back or behind him. You can even see that squirrel before the dog does and turns his head.
Go, Jeff.
I was just thinking about this. Maybe we're thinking small, but I mean, it is a Rottweiler. I've had one. Mine was like 85 pounds when he was small, and then I don't know. He ended up around 120 or so before he passed. Maybe something larger, maybe like a Ronin 2 with a Komodo or something, and a small, nice wide lens. I mean, if you're going to go for it. You got a horse to put it on practically, so just strap it to it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty durable, but I do think the GoPro is probably. I've seen a lot of people put the GoPros on their cats, so I think the Rottweiler will be okay. Next question. I mean, it was a big cat.
Here's another one from the QR code. Kane Treble in Mildura, Australia asks, looking for a tripod base for a monopod for rapid deployment to record at an event as a solo creator. I'm after something wide enough to not have my DSLR topple, but small enough for a small footprint. Or should I just stick with a tripod?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Stick with a tripod. Absolutely stick with a tripod.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I concur. Stick with the tripod because anything that has fold-out legs and a small footprint, and you raise it up the laws of physics say if you put any weight on top of a stick above a small center of outside the center of gravity of the thing at the base, unless that base is weighted, like, a mic stand with a steel base that weighs about 12 pounds, you're going to be in constant fear of somebody bumping it, and it'll go right over.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, there's some good options from Manfrotto, from iFootage. Their Cobra 3, I think, is a really popular one that has a modular system. But I would really recommend sticking with what the other people here have said about going with a tripod, just maybe something with a quick release clutch, like maybe the new small rig setup with Potato Jet's signature model and all those, where you're not fiddling with the little clasps or the twist locks or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't walk away very far from a camera if you're going to put it. I'd keep it on some kind of tripod. The two that I would look at if you want something that's monopod or close to a monopod would be the iPhoto. So iPhoto gear, iFootage gear is the. I've seen a lot of people use them. I don't have one of these. I have a Manfrotto myself, but this one I've seen at a couple shows that is pretty amazing. So it's got like a little foot pedal, and you can kind of put things on it. It's pretty beefy. I still wouldn't leave it there, but it's got some really interesting controls there that I think are useful if you're looking for a small footprint. You can see I wouldn't put it in a place where there's a lot of people walking around. You could probably use it in a studio as a tripod. The one that I have put pretty expensive cameras on is the Triad Orbit. So this is I have got a couple of these. Here's the downside of these. They're heavy. I mean, these are beasts. They're 2 or 3 times as heavy as a normal tripod. And they have this small base on them. The reason that we use those specifically is because if you're using a 360 camera, and specifically we paired these with our Nokia Ozos, which were at the time $60,000 cameras, was because they aren't going anywhere. I mean, you really have to run into them, and you'd be able to push down a tripod, but they are heavy. You're not going to be able to just walk around. I mean, you can, but it's a workout. So they're heavy metal. They're super reliable, and they work great, and they're expensive. I think they're $400 or $500. But we used one with every Ozo that I had its own triad orbit tripod, or what they call, I don't know what they call it, the tripod stands. So very, very stable if you're looking for that. The advantage for 360 cameras is it creates a small footprint to paint out later because it's pretty far away from the camera, and it opens up flat at the bottom. So that's something else to think about if that makes a difference for the kind of stuff that you're doing. Next question.
This one's from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington, and on the panel today. With the recent push of open media transport and adoption by many brands, do you think that this is healthy competition within the industry for NDI, spurring innovation, or is it going to be a haves and have-nots?
Go, Jeff.
For me, it's hard to say. I mean, yes, it did spur a little bit of innovation. It was really more about a bluff call because there was a lot of big changes that were supposedly being talked about happening in the NDI ecosystem for royalties for software vendors, specifically for software. And that was a change from what they've had in the past. And there's a lot of people upset about them, one of those being vMix and another being Sienna. So I have some intimate knowledge about it. And it forced NDI to go back on their forward method that they were going. They went backwards and went back to where they were. So I think its job was done. I would never just go like, well, I'm just going to use OMT because I have it. I wouldn't do that because all my NDI workflows work great. And I wouldn't want to take a risk. And then I'm going to set myself up in multiple islands because there's no encoders that I've seen yet. I feel like his job was done to force the hand. And then, now we've got a little competition in the market, but that's about it.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I don't know. I mean, it's got a handful of supporters. I think right now the adopters are Central Control, Sienna, Soft Vellum, and vMix. And the problem really is that it is an industry solution, not a customer solution or a consumer solution. They just don't want to pay for the royalties, And so and that's usually in the past, unless you're a very, very large company, that model has never worked. I think ever, so they, because you have to have something that the consumers really are like, oh, this is better than, the X, Y, and Z. And so I think that as all of this NDI kind of really builds up and it's continuing to grow, and 2110 is coming through on the other side, and you have even companies like Blackmagic using compressed 2110. As you look at those things, that it kind of, that market's getting pretty crowded. And adding another one, you really need someone big now, if someone like, let's say, Blackmagic supported OMT, then we would have a whole different conversation. But you need a company that size in the industry to say, we're getting behind that to have it actually work. And because vMix is part of the founders of it, the chances of Blackmagic joining would be almost zero. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to also say there is another format that is out there now, and it is kind of targeted at cloud, where it's really about it's not really necessarily a codec, but it's MXF, and that's going to be the bigger game changer because it's a whole new way of thinking in large infrastructure, especially for really large infrastructures.
MXF is a lot of folks, really, really big players are playing too. So MXF, not the same as OMT, but it has a much higher chance of success than OMT. But I think that OMT will kind of just pass by the wayside if we're still talking about OMT in 2 or 3 years, I'd be blown away. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas asks the panel, considering the rapid pace of technological change discussed on the show, how do you decide when to adopt a new technology, like NDI or Dante audio networking, versus sticking with a tried and true workflow?
I'll go, Jeff.
I don't understand why you would think that NDI and Dante are new. I've been using them for over 10
new
years.
for him,
So,
like new for
okay.
I don't think a new thing, but like if you're think about your own workflow, like when do you add a new piece into that workflow as opposed to what you're already doing?
It's the current method. It's just a different method. I think we would make that choice, but there's still people using HDMI for whatever reason because it exists there as an option. But NDI, there's just so much more NDI, whether it's NDI or 2110 or an IP-based workflow, is just a bigger change in just the overall thinking and construction of your setup than just running cables. So I think it's more so of what you're trying to achieve in your studio or in your workflows themselves.
Good, Courtney.
The problem with standards, especially protocols or interface standards, connecting one thing to another thing, gazintas to gazettas, is a standard has to stay still long enough for people to adopt it. And if the technology is changing at a rapid rate, a standard doesn't have a chance to be adopted because, they'll come out with something new that the old standard doesn't work on, and now the standard's obsolete, and they have to update the standard, and now you've got 3 different versions of those connectors on your hardware, and this one accepts 2.0, but this one only accepts 3.2, and it's a nightmare, and we learned this when they came up with the XML version of metadata because it was extensible. So the schemas, everybody had their own schema. There was no standard, and you have to parse all that data coming in, and you got to know what format it's in order to parse it. So it's a royal nightmare of establishing a standard, and that's why NDI and Dante took 5 or 6 years to become standard enough that you will see the cards on a variety of different equipment, and that several of the manufacturers will adopt it. So I think the time to adopt a new technology as far as an interface standard is when all of the major manufacturers have those ports built into their hardware, and then I would move to one of those standards.
Go ahead, Zach.
I come from a more disruptive approach to technology integration into our productions, and it really comes down to when I can't do something, I look for something that can. And if I have room to fail or I have a backup process to supplement it, if I do fail on that technology and integration, then I move forward and I test it and I test it and I test it. But I do not implement if I don't have room and I don't have that leniency of failing or a backup plan.
Go, Cindy.
I tend to be naive and adventurous, and if it looks like or sounds like it'll improve my production, I tend to adopt things as soon as I can afford them.
Yeah, I think that for me, for production, I always think about the meetings I'm going to have if it doesn't work. So I think about that a lot because I've been in some of those meetings, and so as a result, if I'm bringing something new, and I know when we went to Dante, that was almost 15 years ago. I mean, not 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I think. When we went to Dante, it was one of those things that it didn't get used for 6 months. Like we were slowly putting it into the pipeline. We were watching it. We were running parallel processes to look at it and everything else. And we had some really smart people thinking about it. But we didn't turn it on and have it work. And even then we had, we occasionally had a clocking issue that we had to learn how to manage. And so those and turned out to be a bug inside of the Yamaha desks, and so anyway, so those are the kind of things we like to see things over time. I really love doing shows for free for people like nonprofits and things that I think are interesting. Right now I'm trying to experiment with the idea of studio production, like inside of a rehearsal studio. My daughter's in a band. We're obviously not making any money at it, but I bring a bunch of cameras in and shoot stuff with my son, and we figure things out, and I'm figuring out like the process of that and how it works and what it looks like. And I'll maybe someday, if I get good at it, and we're partnered with a studio in, some of you have seen some of the streams from Swell, and Rocket has been working there to wire it all up and get it all connected and have control systems and everything else. And so we're not making any money with that. We're trying to figure it out, and it's something that all of us can kind of play with. So I have a small version with where my daughter's working, and then Swell, which is a larger version of that. And the idea is to try to figure this thing out when things go wrong, there's not a lot of like, I'll just be like, you can cut my pay in half, like if it doesn't work. And so you want to get good at that. Now, at some point, we want to turn that into something that generates revenue. But you want to find places that are safe sandboxes to figure this stuff out if you can. Now, if you're doing something on your own, you can always tell people, this is an experiment. We're going to see how this goes. And that works as well. But you want to be careful of doing too many things, especially for large clients or growing clients or any clients that you're not sure is going to work. Next question.
This one is from Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois. What is your method of labeling, tagging hard drives like the Samsung T9s that have a rubber surface where traditional labels don't stick?
Go ahead, Mark.
So we've had a lot of luck using a label maker from Brady that looks like this. And the adhesive on those labels is a lot stronger than other label makers we've tried. Also, if the label still doesn't stick, you can take a little bit of high grit sandpaper and very carefully brush off that shiny finish on that hard drive. Wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol, and then it should stick. If not, you can use the less professional method of a silver Sharpie.
Which still wipes off over time. That's the challenge. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I would agree with Mark, except I use a Dymo. And I found that you have to use the right labels, the cartridges themselves. So the cartridges that's in it, I actually labeled it, and it's coming off now, but I labeled it with a Sharpie because I wanted to make sure it never peeled off on it, because it's flexible nylon for cables because it wraps over, and permanent vinyl. And I still have several of the T5s, T9s, all those with that rubber. It is irritating. I agree with you completely. And they do kind of peel off a lot faster, but they're still on there. And I've been using these Dymos for years now.
I go to Courtney.
What I do on things that the labels would tend to peel off is I use one of the Dymo label makers, the T500, I think, the one that connects by Bluetooth and spits out the labels, and wastes a lot of label because it always spits out a half an inch before it starts to print the label. We just do that. But anyway, I use that, and they have pretty good. It's a laminated label and it has really good adhesive. But if you're going to put it on one of those awful textured rubber coated drives, and be forewarned, after about 3 years, that rubber coating will oxidize and start to become a sticky mess. And there's nothing you can do about it except take a really harsh solvent, go in there and remove that coating completely with acetone or something. And then it has to dry. Oh, it's a mess. I hate that. Don't buy drives with that finish. But anyway, the other thing that I do is I take clear Mylar, heavy-duty clear Mylar packing tape, and I'll put the label on, and then I'll put the packing tape around it, wrap it all the way around, and that way it covers all the edges of the label that has the information on it. And eventually that packing tape may peel up, but you can then replace it. But that's what I do to protect it from the edges getting caught on stuff and just lifting off.
Go ahead, Zach.
I actually had to do this last summer with a number of these drives with that surface, along with racks. The key is a Brady printer, nylon, fabric labels, and then some Simple Green, about 2 or 3 washes, good scrubbings on the device beforehand. And if you're buying rack equipment from China, they will be greasy and off gas the entire time, and they will never work. So either etch or gaff tape.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I forgot to mention AirTags. I started putting them on some of those because I paid so much money for them. And invariably, you're going to loan it to somebody, and you'll never know who you loaned it to or remember. At least I don't. And so I started putting AirTags on the ones that are really valuable, and they're really easy to label. So that's another option.
Yeah, and I have to admit I haven't run into it because I used Crucials. Crucial X10s are the ones that I'm using with my cameras, and they work pretty well. I will say that almost all SSDs I consider only half as good as they are. So if I get a 2 terabyte drive, I expect 1 terabyte of performance, or if I get a 4 terabyte drive, I expect 2 terabytes of performance. We found that as you fill them up, they tend to become less efficient if you're putting like really high volume onto them from a 12K camera or something like that. But in general use, I've found them to be fairly useful. The Crucials are like $269 for 4 terabytes or something like that. So they're relatively inexpensive, and I have so many like laying around. So, and like Jeff, I'm always like, where did I put those other 2 drives? Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, what does the panel think of the Thomann ComboRack? I like the combination of synthesizer storage and rack space, with a link.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, so this is there we go. This is the rack he's referring to. It looks like it's a masonite box with flat bottom, so it can go on your desk or a counter. This has the pull-out drawers for your synths or your different devices. The thing that I found on these implementations is that they tend to slide on your desk. So if you're pulling in or pushing out a drawer, they tend to slide around or move around unless they're really heavy with a lot of equipment. And I typically will put rubber strip on the bottom to make it not do that. But I mean, it's just a generic rack. I personally would be custom making one of these if I was to want to do this.
Next question.
Next up is Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. What do you think of the 30% off Blackmagic cameras? With a link.
I think they're a pretty good deal. I mean, if you look at this is the Pixis 6Ks for as little as $2,300 here for these, and then there's other ones that are a variety of different deals. I will say I haven't shot with the Pixis yet, but I've seen some footage of it, and at $2,300, it's a pretty good deal. Almost everything else in that price point. It has the thing that Pixis fixed that Blackmagic kind of put off for a long time is building kind of a box-like camera that we could build stuff around, and so all the other cameras at $2,300, the Sonys and others, I don't think any of them are box-like. So from a production perspective, I'd much rather have that as well as their full-frame sensors at $2,300. And so I think that those look really good. I haven't had to spend a lot of time working on the autofocus. That's been the big thing that's kind of kept me back from some of those things. But if you're doing standard film production, you don't need it. 25% off, as a guy said, on the Pocket 6Ks. I just shot all that stuff I was talking about with my daughter's band with Pocket 6Ks, and just forgot how much fun it was to use the camera. It's just really easy the interfaces are easy. It's easy to set them all up, and we got them up in very, very fast, and I think shot some great footage. The ability at that price, and I don't know, it's like $1,200 or whatever, at that price to shoot that kind of footage is still something that amazes me. I have a lot of cameras that cost a lot more that shot a lot less. Next question.
Next up is John Foltz in Sealands Grove, Pennsylvania. Is anyone using the Blackmagic 2110 equipment yet? What are your results?
We tested it for a project that I was working on. We were looking at buying hundreds of them, and it worked flawlessly. We just haven't been able to. We just don't have a job that needs it. The big thing is the ecosystem. You have to have everything be in 2110, or it becomes very difficult to get anything into 2110. But we found that the router, which is the 360 router, along with a lot of the individual pipelines, I was kind of surprised, and I have to admit, I could definitely see myself going down the 2110 path, having used those. Most of the other 2110 solutions are a lot more expensive, but we didn't see any issues with them. We didn't have any problems with them. We just, in the pipelines that we had, we still needed to go back to baseband. But we're putting the way we're doing it. But we still ended up buying hundreds of Blackmagic Ternexes. so anyway, so we still worked with using the Blackmagic equipment, but we couldn't quite get the 2110 to work the way we wanted it to, not because it was a feature set. It was just the way we were rolling things out. Next question.
Coming to us from New York City, New York, Alton Christensen asks, I'm unsure about the framing of Alton Brown in his new video with his head sliced off. Might this be a new trend?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Gosh, I hope not. I think he did this video to demonstrate the fact, because he's talking about the size of the birds, of the turkeys. This is his turkey. And so here's a shot from inside his fridge about how big it is and how you have trouble fitting it inside your refrigerator or your stove. And so he's got all of these different claustrophobic shots inside of it. So I think it's done for effect for this specific video. He's cutting off his head and then keeping it very tight and claustrophobic because he's trying to show you stuff in front of it and still keep his face in the frame. That's a tough framing to make and still feel a little bit claustrophobic to demonstrate the size of the turkey and how it doesn't necessarily fit in all your appliances.
Maybe. I mean, I do think that you're right, but man, he seems pretty comfortable in that position. So here's the shot here. Here you can see him cutting it. I do think that it very much could be a shtick, but we'll have to look at more in the future. Bad black levels there. Anyway, so but here you can see every shot he's cut off. I mean, but this is the most produced Alton Brown thing I think I've seen in. Oh, it's episode 1. Okay. So there we go. That's why. Nope, there's one where he didn't cut his this is the first one. I was like, he's been doing lots of little random things that have been not felt like they were shot with a phone. So this is the first time I've seen him actually do something produced since Good Eats. As far as this kind of thing, it definitely looks like he's taking a much more personal, process to it. So it doesn't seem like he wants to make it a big machine. But with Alton Brown, remember, he is a cinematographer. He's not just a cook. So if he's doing it on purpose. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how he takes it. I think there's a certain level of it feels like a window that you're kind of close to. I think it'll be interesting to see if he keeps on going down that path. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas is back with us. What do you make of the new Beestation with a Synology link?
Go ahead, Mark.
So what concerns me about this is it looks like it only holds 1 or 2 drives, and so you wouldn't be able to do RAID 5 or RAID 6. And if you're serious about backups, I'd like to be able to lose a drive and be warned about it while not losing my backup material. So I would go with something from OWC or even this manufacturer that has more drives in it. And if you're really backing up a lot of data, I would go with 45 drives.
Now go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, so the B-Link is more of the Synology's consumer-focused product. And the thing about these is you're not putting your own drives into them. You're buying the drives with the product. And it's really consumer-focused. They have a lot of mobile apps and things like that for you to integrate. And so as a technical person like myself and many of the people here on the panel, we like to change things, create permissions, special scenarios, and the Synology software really does a better job of allowing you to do that. And so I would recommend staying away from it unless you are specifically wanting a consumer-focused product. It's fairly new in the industry, and it hasn't, in my opinion, been proven yet. But it's basically just a really consumer-focused thing, and we're more focused on the professional side where I'm at, and I'd rather have the customizable disk stations.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think it all depends on what you're needing it for, right? So the right tool for the right job is what I like to say. And definitely this would be for just general storage. I wouldn't be using it for any kind of shared storage, even across multiple machines of my own. It just doesn't have all the feature sets that I need. And especially in a workstation deployed environment with multiple workstations, multiple editors, I need a lot more tools. And that's where my choice is a 45 drives, as Mark mentioned. There's just nothing like it. It warms up the place in the back. I mean, it helps make sure that everything in the rack is on, because if you don't hear it whenever you walk through the door, you know something's wrong. It's just got all the check marks that love to irritate you and help you at the same time.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, they also make this portable drive too. Besides the Beestation, there's the AI-powered portable SSD, which looks like a little puck here that plugs in. I worry about that AI part. I always worry about AI taking over to synchronize folders on multiple computers, because hopefully it will manage things correctly and make sure that it doesn't overwrite an older file with a newer file. A newer file with an older file, and it checks the size and the date and time, and you got to make sure all your machines' clocks are synchronized. Otherwise, you have problems. And I always like to control when the backup is done, because if you make a mistake, and I have a large file that I made a mistake and the data got corrupted in it, and then the automatic AI backup will just copy that new version of the corrupted file over my last good copy. And I always hate it when that happens. Now, both files are corrupted. So I worry about something that automatically backs up my stuff over certain drives, and that's why I keep my backups distributed over multiple drives, and I control with batch files when that backup is done to what drive, and only after I'm sure that backup is not corrupted do I alternate backups between 3 different drives. That way I can always go back 2 versions if I find that corruption is snuck into one of the files.
If you're watching this on YouTube alone, you're getting about half the show. We discuss things. There's an incredible chat. You can vote on questions, ask questions in Makana. And if you want to be part of that and also possibly join the Discord that we have, which is a whole nother discussion, you can go to officehours.global/join. Next question.
This one's from Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. For a hybrid house of worship service, I want to create a QR code for the order of service for the virtual congregation. How should this be done?
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, you're really going to want to have a central location, whether it be on the House of Worship's website or somewhere like that for people to land. And then you want to make sure you use a QR software that doesn't require either a subscription or a forwarding service. So if you go to any of these free QR services online, they will always have some sort of URL shortener built into them, and that's tracking. And that's how they get that product out for free, is they sell your data. The worst thing about that, though, is when that service goes down or they fail or they don't renew that forwarding URL's domain license, it goes to spammers. So I recommend using something like a Mac app called QR Studio, and it allows you to customize your QR code. It allows you to put a logo in the middle of it. But what it does, more importantly, is it gives you the ability to guarantee that the QR code will never change, and where you're going to land is never going to change. And that's something super important for the vulnerable audience that may be attending that house of worship.
Yeah, I agree with Zach 100%. I started off playing with some of those services, and the nice thing about the services is they have tons and tons of features, and there's all these cool things that it can do, but you don't want to ever use an online service to build a QR code. On the Mac, I know Tony's on a Mac, so on a Mac, I use QR. I use QR Pop, but I don't think it's available anymore. But there's also QR Factory, and then I'm now interested in QR Studio because Zach mentioned it, and so I'll check it out. I'm always looking for new ones with new features. The reason for that is a lot of us sit there and your web page. I think Chrome will build you a QR code. It just looks ugly. None of us use those. Anybody who builds lots of QR codes, we don't use the standard squarey, kind of what we call square QR codes. And so that we tend to kind of avoid those because we can't customize them. It is very accurate and it will do it for free. But a lot of us like to have little round ones, and we like to control what the control points are, and we like to do all those other things that make it look like we've actually thought about it a little bit. So, if you look at the one that we use here, there's a couple things about this one that it is. You can see that I've customized it a little bit. I played with the color a little bit so that I have it there. It says I build a short URL so that if you have an Android phone and doesn't read it well, you can just type the thing in. iPhones will catch almost anything you point at them. Android phones are a little bit more funky about it, so you have to kind of build that out. Technically, for an Android phone, I should have a white border around the whole thing. That seems to be something connected. I just am not willing to lower my design for a technical deficiency. So anyway, but I put a URL across the top. I buy these; they're $7, or whatever it is. So across the top, it says ask officehours.global, ask something. Don't use any of the shorteners, in my opinion, because people can't remember what they are. They need to look at them and be able to immediately know what they are, and they type it in. It makes it so much easier for them to figure it out if there's some kind of thing. So I always have a human readable and easy to remember URL that I paid for that has it up there, and then I can simply redirect it to a page. The page can be on your website. It can be, keep it something that's easy to edit. So it can't be some kind of crazy. So if you're using WordPress or Squarespace or something else like that, make sure that anybody can get up there and edit it. You probably want a WordPress solution, maybe your best bet, because you can build some kind of CMS where people can just type in what needs to be typed in, and it looks nice when they actually get to it. So, and also think about how it's going to wrap when you have it on a phone versus on an iPad or anything else someone might be using. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I do just use the one that's built into Chrome. It's if you're wondering where it is, it's stuck over here in the little hamburger menu. You go down to Cast, Save, and Share, and down at the very bottom there is Create QR Code. And then anything that's in the URL will show up here first, and it does have a little thing. You can then go in Photoshop once you save it out as a PNG or something and replace the little dinosaur in the middle with something else. But anything that you type in here, you can see as I'm typing, will then be encoded into that QR code. So you can just paste any instructions or anything that you want to incorporate in that QR code, other than including a link to a website And you can be assured that it won't take you to somebody else's website that'll hijack all your data, et cetera. So it's built into every Chrome browser. So that's an easy solution. It's free and it's always there.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, just to hammer home, the URL with the QR code is super important, like Alex was saying. But remember that obviously that short URL is not going to be the entire thing. And wherever that URL points to needs to have an easy way to navigate to that thing. So if your landing page at .com or .org for the house of worship doesn't have a way to get to that thing quickly in the navigation, or it's not user friendly, you may want to explore that as well and make sure that's up to snuff.
Yeah, and again, we direct you, when you hit our QR codes, it takes you directly to what you are doing. There's no navigation. Like we're going to direct you to that page.
I'm referring if they just hit that URL instead of the QR code.
I know, I'm saying if you type that URL or hit the QR code, both of those will take you directly to the page we want you to be at. Like we never have anything that you should find. This is like Google AdWords 101. Is that you send people to exactly where they need to go, and when they get there, they should be getting exactly what they expected. You should never have them have to do anything other than that. It should not be confusing. It should not, like it's when we use we use a different version of that QR code for these movie events that we do, and the key is don't have any logins. It's very easy to get to. It goes direct. It has that little URL across the top. And we have 35% of the people sitting in theaters asking a question, which is an insane percentage because we've lowered all that friction and made it easy to work with. Next question.
This one is from Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. And Kenny asks, for cargo trailer converted to a mobile control room, how are you handling heat and cooling during summer events?
Go ahead, Mark.
Trailer that does the same thing, and it is right here, and you can see a 3-ton system hanging right off the front of that trailer, and it actually is a heat pump too, so it keeps it warm in the winter and cool in the summer.
Go ahead, Jeff.
There's so many great answers for this question. I've not to toot my horn, but I've built over 20 different production events, vehicles, everything from a small, very, very small car to very large vehicles such as buses and even semi-trucks. So I've had a lot of experience with this, and especially more in the middle range. So the cargo trailers for some reason they call them horse trailers up north. I don't understand that. They just think that's a horse trailer. I've always called them a cargo trailer. The first thing to do is not to worry about what you're going to put in as a AC or heating unit. The first thing to do is insulate it correctly. That is where if you leave it up to a trailer manufacturer, they just halfway do it. They'll throw in just styrofoam in the walls, and then there's just all this just loose stuff moving around. There's no air barriers. There's no actual thermal barriers between the outside to the inside. So you end up with heat transfer. It's real. There's a lot of more physics in it than you think. We moved to spray foam insulation. One of the first that we did in spray foam was one of our office hour friends, Doug Ferguson. We actually built his trailer for him, a 24-footer, and that was all sprayed foam ceiling and walls. I learned a lesson because I'm from Texas, so we don't really have the freezing cold temperatures that we have a lot up north. So we learned a lesson. We did not do his floor as spray foam, and had to come. We still need to go back and do it years later because he's just never had it done. But that's another place. If you're up in the north, you need to do a full encapsulation of foam and insulation, top, bottom, sides, everywhere. We do about 1.5 inches and it's closed cell foam, so it doesn't have any kind of odor after it's done. And then we put the walls on, and then we put the carpet or the coverings on, whatever happens to be. We've done this in vans. We've done this in trailers. Now, once you have a insulated space that's not leaking air or temperatures in and out, then move to the cooling side. The easiest way is an AC from an RV type design. They go on the roof. Everybody's seen them on the top of my bus has 5. So that was their idea, is just throw a whole bunch of ACs in them, and then we get to work on them all the time. But I don't recommend that unless you're just really into it for a budget reason. Those are now they used to be about $1,200. Now they're about $1,800 to $2,000. Even the newer ones are even more, that are 12-volt based. They're very efficient, and they actually are a little quieter. That's the reason I don't recommend them anymore, is because they're just noisy. And when you're in a MCR type, and you're in a control room, the last thing you want to hear is a director going like, "Can you turn this off?" And it's like, "No, I can't turn it off because that's your AC, brother." But that's what's happened to a lot of us that have had those older AC units. The ones that Mark pointed out, that is a split unit, hands down, without a doubt, best way to do it. The difference in the split units, the one thing that I see a lot of people doing is they'll just put one in a trailer. I always put two now, just because again, I'm from Texas. It's 115 degrees and at some of our events, we don't want to have to worry about does the AC work or not. And you'll notice in every very large semi-truck, OB truck, those are always with split units that are 2 units per truck. So you got to have a backup, and you don't want to be without AC in those situations. But start with the insulation first. If you already passed that point, all you can do is just throw more money at it, and you will just have to throw more money at it. There's no way to get around it. You just have to put more cold air in there than what you have escaping at that point in time. If you ever want to discuss it, reach out to me on Discord. I've got hundreds of pictures and hundreds of things that we've done like that we'd be glad to share. So I love this topic. I could talk all day on it. It's one of my favorite.
Go ahead, Mark.
Jeff is so right about the insulation. So ours was insulated by the manufacturer of the trailer, and it was a very thin layer of something. I mean, it looks like plastic when you look at it, cut through it and look at it. And everyone wears really warm boots in the wintertime because the floor is freezing. So,
yeah, this is the trailer that we got a long time ago with PixelCore. This is when it first showed up from Marketech as a 24-foot trailer here. And it has 2 of these little air conditioning units across the top. So you can see it. You can only see one of them here. I was trying to find a higher shot of this, but there was another one up front here that had it here. Now, in addition to updating some of the insulation, we also put what I will say is on these trailers, we put the speed rail, which was no minor investment. It turned out like I was like, someone told me how much it cost. I was like, what? It's all these little connectors that get you. Anyway, so but this allowed us to get up there and build stuff across it. It also allowed us to run across. We would run these. We could attach something over here and drop it down to go over walkways. So that was kind of useful for us there. And then here's what the interior looked like. So we tore out in addition to you can see the AC unit, the front AC unit here. There's another one on the other side. And then what we did is we took out all their tables and we built bigger tables so we had more space. And then we ran monitors down the side, and it was a pretty useful little trailer there. So trailers are great. We probably could do a whole special on that with Jeff. Next question.
I was going to say exactly that. Let's do a whole special on it. I'm ready.
Okay, cool. All right, next question.
Next up is Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington, asking, what are some of the most popular ways to get a multiple SRT feed from 1080p cameras into AWS for cutting and adding a simple graphic?
Go, Jeff.
Hands down, the Makita, High Vision Makita X4. That is the probably de facto standard I've seen. With 4 channels up, and you could do multiple different frame rates, but definitely 1080p times 4, without a doubt. And I love it. And I got 3 of them, and they're just very dependable. That's what I like about them. And they're all in sync, too. Even between 2 units, you can sync all 8 channels together, which is really, really powerful.
Yeah, so I've been needing to transport cameras and keep them in perfect sync, to the frame recently. And one of the things that we've been using also is if you have some way to compress 4K, using the 3G quad to 12G Blackmagic, this little $600 box, you can throw 4 1080p cameras in there and send it to wherever you're going. Now I'm not saying to the cloud, I'm saying to another location. But then what happens is then you go 12G to 3G on the hardware on the other side, and you're able to split those cameras back out again. Now I happen to be using only 2 of those, but it keeps them in sync perfectly. And so that is probably, you can probably get into the Makita is definitely the best solution to do that. But I think it's 15,000. I think is that about right, Jeff?
Somewhat around there.
Yeah, somewhere between $15,000 and $22,000, I think. The solution that I'm giving you here would probably be in the 3,000 to 5,000 range. So and still get stuff to you. It's not as nice, but it would get you 4 signals that were in sync into the cloud at 4K. Bring in 4K. You just have to know how you're going to pull those back out again. And we're using, to combine them in the cloud, we're using FFmpeg to do other things. We're doing a couple other things that are somewhat related to multicam. Next question.
This one is from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington, and on today's panel. NEP has a walkthrough video of their full 2110 trailer for NBC Basketball. Are these trailers really worth the multi-million dollars, or is there budget ways to accomplish this? With a YouTube link.
Go ahead, Zach.
So wasn't really trying to throw a Cochrane to myself here, but I figured I would share the video with everybody. This is a great little video that shows you kind of behind the sneak peek behind the scenes of what NBC is doing with their trailers. And they go through from audio to video to shading and then back to their servers. This is I believe a 53-foot trailer with a double extension. Tons of room, tons of tech. But the cool thing about it is it's 2110 throughout, like the entire trailer from in to out is all 2110. And what was really interesting to me was that in their back server room, they talk about how they have all their routing, but they actually have all their video processing done on trailer before it goes out to the network hub at NBC. So I was just curious, like on Jeff and Alex, like these trucks cost millions and millions of dollars. There's obviously no way to do this cheaply because of the level and standard that they're operating at. But I was just curious, like, is there a middle ground to 2110 and full stack production that would work in a scenario for people that have limited resources like me and some of these guys?
You go, Jeff.
It's called NDI. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people that don't have the full 2110 budget, that NDI is the one that meets that solution and meets it in the place. I mean, we could do a router for, say, for instance, a 4,000 by 4,000 input router in and out from Sienna is roughly around $7,000 US. So in comparison to the router they have in that truck, is going to be substantially more into the $500,000s. If we ever want to have a really good conversation, we need to get one of our other office hours friends that's on every once in a while. He did the rocket launch with us, Greg Ballot. He works with the PGA, and he has some great information on the tech side of some of their IP-based trucks, which are just the amount of bandwidth available in that would run a small city and then some. It's just really amazing. But that's what you're paying for, is the scale in that truck, and the millions of dollars that are into it is because it can do everything it can do and never be asked to do something more than what it could be doing, because it could just do it. And they're amazing, but you get what you pay for in that level for sure.
I do think that we'll probably see, we're kind of seeing this slow move by Blackmagic into something that's a more portable 2110. So I think you're going to have that as something that's coming up to speed. But I do agree that the in-between, if you're not going to go baseband, is going to be NDI. Next question.
Roz Humphreys in Comox, British Columbia asks the panel, "Good morning. I have to buy a new TV. We like our OLED, but now see the listing says AI OLED. Any thoughts on any potential benefits or costs?"
Go, Courtney.
Well, it depends. It depends on whether you're very OCD and how you like your picture, because AI, once you turn on the AI features, the TV then takes control, automatically adjusts the frame rate, automatically adjusts the contrast, automatically adjusts the surround sound to watch you in your living room to see where you're standing, and then it will position all the virtual sound where to the sweet spot where you're standing. And if you have a crowd of people in there, it probably gets confused and explodes. LG has this new AI mode that is building in, and I kind of hate to have a TV that thinks it's smarter than I am. But they do also have voice commands built in, so you got to be careful and train them so that if you're just having a conversation in your living room, you don't suddenly change the contrast on your television set just because it's interpreted something you were saying as a voice command to change channels or start recording or, whatever. They can be smart and they can be too smart. So I'd be careful about the AI and just make sure that you can turn off those AI features if you need to. And maybe the AI will prevent the burn-in on those OLED screens. That is the main thing I worry about is leaving something on and walking away that has a static banner or something or a logo burned into the upper right-hand side or lower right-hand side. That's going to be there forever now.
Yeah. We had an OLED for an event one time, and someone left it. It came in plastic. They put it down, and they've got it running. And someone left it with the graphic that they were going to use overnight, and that was that. It was like an $8,000 OLED. So anyway, yeah, it's a thing. Anyway, so I agree. I will say that for me, all I care about is picture quality. I don't care about any of the features because I never let my TVs touch the internet. Like, that is just crazy in my opinion. Like, do not have your TV, do not allow it. There's all kinds of nefarious things that your TV manufacturers are doing with your data and everything else that's going on. If it comes with a camera, put a piece of tape over it. If it, do not allow your TVs to do this. That they are not doing this for you. Like, just be clear, they are using you up. Like just imagine, it's such a bad idea. So get whatever player you want. I happen to use an Apple TV, so my Apple TV is my in between. My TV doesn't do anything other than just run Apple TV. It's a monitor for Apple TV. Now, you could use a Chromecast. You could use. There's lots of other things that are out there that you could use. You don't have to use an Apple TV. I like mine because I'm kind of deep in the ecosystem, so all the movies go to everywhere and all my subscriptions go everywhere, and it just makes it easy to use. But you could use something else, but you should not let it touch the internet. That's all I'll just keep saying. One last question because Cindy's here. Go ahead, Cindy.
This question is from me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I've been using Rebrandly to create QR codes. If I use a subdomain and redirect on my website host, will the QR code still work if Rebrandly vaporizes?
I go with Zach.
So kind of like what we were talking about before, the first thing is if your videos have the URL on the QR code, people will be able to still recognize where they need to go. But the best thing to do is Rebrandly is a forwarding service. They do have a shortener that does track and does give you analytics and does all that stuff. And so if they vaporize, so does your referral link. So the best thing to do would be to just verify and then replace going forward with something that doesn't have that. But just understand, because of that, you're losing your analytics. You're losing some of the insights you get from that service. But if that doesn't matter to you, then just use a QR generator like we've mentioned. Also, if you use your iPhone to check a QR code in the future, like any other person's QR code, it'll show the URL before you click on it. If it's not the thing that you thought you were going to, it's possible to vaporize.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I was under the impression that if I used a subdomain, created a subdomain on my website host and redirected to that instead of Rebrandly's shortened URL, that it would redirect to that. The redirect being done on my website host, not on Rebrandly. They do offer that. Am I wrong here?
They may, but I would not trust any online service to build a QR code. Like, I just flat out would not trust it. It's just very hard to figure that out. And so I highly recommend getting a software-based, something that's on your computer that you paid for. That does it. I know that I'm sounding old-fashioned and curmudgeon-y, but that's what I would recommend. Go ahead, Zach.
So, like I was saying earlier, Cindy, use your phone, put it up in front of the QR code. If it shows your subdomain going to that link, then you're fine. If it's a shortened URL from them, but that forwards to your subdomain, then it's possible for it to go away. So if you're scanning the QR code and it says your subdomain.yourdomain.tld, then you're safe.
But I still don't trust it. it's because it can. Anyway, it's a long story. So I'd be careful with it. Thank you. thank you so much for everyone for all the great questions. You keep it running every single day with questions. We get in here. There's a handful of questions. We're not sure if we're going to get through a whole hour, and here we are at 8:04. So thank you so much to the producers who asked all the great questions that kept the conversation moving, and thank you to the panelists who make this possible. We can't do this without you. It's great to see everybody here. I've been traveling a lot, but I'll be back for quite some time now. So excited to see everybody here. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And thanks to the incredible back-end crew that makes this possible. Small Village gets up every day to make sure that this show starts on time. This is the 2072nd version of this that we've done. We have not missed a day since March 25th, 2020. It's kind of amazing. If we had done this in person, that's all out to Versal, we would have traveled 29,000 miles. That's 47,000 kilometers, and that is 232 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into after hours. There you go. Mac break. Gotta go get ready for Mac break.
Episode 1000.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's so cute. 1,000. 1,000. We were at 1,000 so long ago. All right, see you, everybody.